Today, I want to talk about questions I get over and over. I often find myself on the call with either a project manager or a client, and similar questions come up. And I wind up having to explain same thing over and over. So let me pick a few and go over them in this video. So maybe I can send people just a video link and not have to spend so much time on the call. Yeah, let's do that. So the first topic is custodian. People always ask, can we figure out who custodian is for the data? How can we assign custodian? Can we look at the metadata and figure out the custodian information? And I always say that's their own approach, because custodian isn't the person who created a document or sent an email. That's not a custodian of the data. Custodian is a person who was in the possession of piece of data when it was collected. Okay, so here's an example. Let's say I take my mailbox and I export out some emails to a PST file. Then I copy that PST to a thumb drive, give it to a coworker, and then they copy it to their laptop. Now, my coworker has PST of my email. Now, let's say there is a litigation and the data gets collected. My coworker's data is going to be collected under their custodian name, and my mailbox will have his name assigned as custodian because he was in the possession of that data. That's my best interpretation of custodian. That's how I understand it works. It's a person who was in the possession of the data, not necessarily a person who created the data. And because of that, it is wrong to try to use metadata to figure out and make up a custodian. If you don't know the custodian name, just say either put a company name or say like maybe it was from a hard drive, put a hard drive label or something like that. But don't try to just figure out custodian name when you don't know where it came from. And this is the other reason why I think assigning custodian to short message communication isn't necessarily correct. You have a group of people who are chatting between each other. There is no custodian. The data resides on a shared server in a shared location. So it is wrong to assign a custodian to it because you could be doing it under everybody's name who was in the group. There is really no true custodian in that case. You should just assign custodian as a shared channel or something like that, not necessarily the person name. Now the next thing I have to explain more than I have to is about a from field for short messages. So when we work with short messages, we usually want to group those messages into a conversation. Whether we create RSMF, PDF, EML, it doesn't matter. We take multiple messages and we put them into one document and we say from this person, this is the message, from this, that message, and so on. We have a document that contains communication that usually is like 24 hours worth of messages, right? And one of the things people ask is, well, where is metadata from field? I need a from field. Why don't I have a from field? It's in the requirement of the, it's an ESI stipulation. I have to have a from field, so you need to provide me with a from field. And it is impossible to do so. And the reason why it's impossible is because we combine multiple froms into one conversation. There is no particular from. There are multiple people talking to each other. The only thing you can have is list of participants, which is what you get in a 2 column. So that is all you can get. You can't have multiple froms. In fact, most systems will not even allow you to have it. So when you have short messages grouped into a conversation, field from is going to be empty because there is no from. You're going to have field either to or participants. That is what you should expect. The next thing is going to be a little crazy, and I can't believe I have to say it, but if you want extracted text and metadata, you need to process your data. And it seems kind of weird, but people ask me, hey, I just want to load this data into a review tool. I'm like, right, you need to process it. They're like, well, no, I don't want to process it. I just want to load it with a DAT file. I'm like, well, then you're not going to get metadata or extracted text. Well, why not? Well, that's what the processing tool does. And this applies oftentimes to like RSMF files or something like that. But just in general, somehow people forgot that processing is a step and they just want to use a DAT import and have everything done. Now, you certainly can load extracted text and metadata from a DAT file, but something has to process that data at some point. Something has to handle an extraction. You can't just take native files, load them with a DAT file, and get everything out of it. That was the point of processing. And somehow this simple concept got forgotten. And finally, maybe a misconception more than a question, but nothing ever works at a click of a button. If you expect to click a button and everything is going to be done for you, you're not going to be employed for much longer. Everything in eDiscovery is broken. From the source data you get, to the tools that we use, to probably output you deliver. There are problems in everything. That's why we have analysts and project managers. Those are the people who will look at the data, figure out what it is, figure out what the process is, figure out what QC steps need to be done, and deal with problems. You can't expect pretty much any software to be click a button and it's all handled for you. If it looks like that, there's probably an error log that's hidden somewhere so that its software looks better, but there is a list of problems or exceptions that they probably don't want you to see. This way you can just say, okay, I processed and it's done and it's indexed and shipped. In fact, there's probably a whole list of files that didn't get extracted text or had some kind of error or something else. I know a lot of people get frustrated by it, and especially when it comes to short messages, they just want it handled. They just say, why can't we just have a button? I'm going to press it and everything is going to be converted for me. Well, that's not how it worked with regular eDiscovery, and that's not how it works with short messages now. Everything is broken. Your source data you get from Facebook, from Teams, Microsoft Teams, from everywhere, even from Google. It all has problems. They write paths badly, they format data badly, forensic software puts different special characters in XML that makes it technically incompatible with XML standards. Everything is broken, and you have to use your brain to look at your data, deal with errors, and solve problems, just like we used to do in the older days of eDiscovery. Now that all the emails and eDoc stuff has been mostly figured out, we're having the same problem with short messages that we used to have. And you're just gonna have to deal with those problems. There is no way around it. There is no one click and done solution. So those are the things I have to repeat over and over to people when I speak to them on Teams or Zoom or phone calls and so on. Are there any ones that you can think of? What are the things you tell people all the time that you are tired of saying? Put them in the comment section below. Don't forget to follow on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube, and I will see you on the video.